Yes, let's talk about hockey, the show that journeys through the history of the sport of ice hockey from its disputed origins to the game we see today. After nearly a decade and a half of expansion, the NHL's size remained locked at 21 teams throughout the 1980s. But after the Wayne Gretzky trade to LA in 1988 grew hockey's popularity in that city, the league began to look at tapping into new markets during the 90s. In the second year of this 90s expansion effort, two new teams joined the fray, the first of which hailed from the Lightning capital of North America, Tampa Bay.
The new franchise was awarded to a Tampa-based group fronted by Hall of Fame brothers Phil and Tony Esposito. Installing himself as president and general manager, Phil brought on Terry Crisp, who had coached the Calgary Flames to a cup in 1989, to be the club's first head coach. During the expansion, Tampa Bay wouldn't receive much, with defenseman Rob Ramage and center Brian Bradley being the two most notable names. But for the entry draft, they were granted the first overall pick, which they used to select defenseman Roman Hamrlik. The Lightning attempted to build their roster a bit more through trades and free agent signings leading up to their first preseason, but it would be the addition of the Canadian women's national team's goaltender Manon Rhéaume during the preseason that really got the hockey community's attention. On September 23, 1992, Rhéaume suited up for the Lightning in a preseason game against the St. Louis Blues, stopping 7 out of 9 shots and becoming the first woman to play in an NHL game, as well as the first woman to play in any of the major professional North American sports leagues. Following a publicity-filled preseason, the Lightning took the ice for their first regular season game on October 7, 1992 at the 11,000-seat Expo Hall at the Florida State Fairgrounds. Behind a 4-goal performance by center Chris Kontos, Tampa was able to shock the visiting Chicago Blackhawks 7-3 for their club's first ever win. Unfortunately, the rest of the Lightning's first season would not turn out as well. Since they were placed in the Norris Division, their nearest divisional rival was over 1,000 miles away, and after a while, the strain of some of the longest road trips in the league became too much, resulting in 7 winless streaks of 5 games or more, and a last-place finish in their division with a 23-54-7 record. Despite this dismal finish, Brian Bradley's breakout 42-goal and 86-point performance did give the team a glimmer of hope. In the 93-94 season, Tampa received even more good news when they were moved to the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference after the league realigned and renamed its divisions and conferences. Additionally, the team also relocated to the larger Florida Suncoast Dome in St. Petersburg. Though the dome was originally built for baseball, it was reconfigured for hockey and renamed the Thunderdome. The club also bolstered their roster by picking up goaltender Darren Pupa, left winger Peter Klima, and veteran center Denis Savard. They even brought up Wayne Gretzky's 21-year-old brother Brent, in the hopes that he would possess some of the skill that his elder brother Wayne did. Once again, Bradley led the team in scoring with 64 points, followed by Klima and Savard. Though Pupa's performance also helped to reduce the club's goals against and improve their record by 18 points, Tampa still finished last in their division at the end of their second year. Another disappointing year followed the lockout-shortened 94-95 season, though this time the Lightning at least managed to move out of last place in their division with 2 more points than the Islanders. In the 95-96 season, though, with Darren Pupa putting up career-best numbers, and Bradley, Hamrlik, and Alex Selivanov putting up over 50 points each, the Lightning were able to edge out the defending Stanley Cup champion Devils by 2 points for the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. In their club's first-ever playoff series, they faced their conference's top team, the Flyers. Philadelphia was able to dominate Tampa in Game 1 with a 7-3 victory, but the Lightning showed they were no pushovers by winning the next 2 games in overtime to take a 2-1 series lead. Unfortunately, after that, the Lightning were only able to score 3 more goals on Philly's netminder Ron Hextall, allowing the Flyers to take the next 3 games and the series. Looking to build on their success from their first playoff experience, the Lightning picked up winger Dino Ciccarelli from Detroit and even moved to the newly built Ice Palace Arena for the 96-97 season. Unfortunately, despite Ciccarelli leading the team with 35 goals and center Chris Gratton having a career year with 30 goals and 62 points, Tampa Bay suffered numerous injuries this season and ended up missing the playoffs by 3 points.
Over the next 5 years, the Lightning would continue to put up losing seasons and miss the playoffs. During this time, the club would change ownerships twice and coaches 4 times, further adding to the team's troubles. However, underneath all of these issues, Tampa was slowly building up their team's core, drafting centers Vincent Lecavalier and Brad Richards, signing free agent wingers Martin St. Louis and Dave Anderchuk, and acquiring winger Frederick Modin, defenseman Dan Boyle, and goaltender Nikolai Khabibulin via trade deals.
The Lightning got off to a good start in the 2002-2003 season, going undefeated in their first 7 games. Unfortunately, they ran into a slump over the next few months, and by the middle of February they were only 1 game above .500. Behind the offensive numbers put up by Vinny Prospal, Lecavalier, Richards, and St. Louis, though, Tampa was able to rally and go 14-4-8 over their final 26 games and edge out the Washington Capitals by a single point for their club's first ever division title. Facing off against their division rivals from Washington in the first round, the Lightning fell into a quick 2-0 series deficit to the Capitals. But thanks to the 10 goals put up by Lecavalier, Prospal, and St. Louis, Tampa was able to win the next 4 games in a row to win their club's first playoff series. Unfortunately, their success was short-lived as they ran into a roadblock in round 2 that took the form of New Jersey goaltender Martin Brodeur. With Brodeur and the Devils' defense shutting down Tampa's biggest stars, the Lightning would only last 5 games before suffering elimination in this series. Looking to take their club to the next level, veteran winger Corey Stillman was added to the roster, and when the 2003-2004 season began, Tampa jumped to a 7-0-1 start after the first month. Though they faltered in November and December, losing 11 games in a 19-game stretch, things picked back up in January with 2 5-game win streaks. Defenseman Daryl Sador was picked up from Columbus the next month to strengthen their blue line, and by the end of the regular season, the Lightning were not only the best team in their division, but also in their conference, with St. Louis, Stillman, and Richards finishing ranked number 1, 8, and 10 in the league for scoring, respectively.
In the Lightning's first-round playoff series, they held the 8th-ranked New York Islanders to a mere 5 goals, with Khabibulin pitching 3 shutouts to advance to the second round after 5 games. Then, against Montreal in the next round, Khabibulin started the series off with another shutout, and over the next 3 games afterwards, he would only allow 4 goals to get by him, while Lecavalier and Richards netted 3 goals apiece to oust the Canadiens in a 4-game sweep and advance to the conference finals for the first time ever.
In this round, Tampa faced the Atlantic Division winners from Philadelphia. Despite Richards, Lecavalier, and Ruslan Fedotenko combining for 13 goals, these 2 clubs traded wins back and forth through the first 6 games of the series. In Game 7, the Lightning tightened up their defense, limiting the Flyers to only 23 shots, while Fedotenko and Modin netted goals in the first and second periods to give their club its first ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals. In the finals, Tampa faced the Calgary Flames, and much like the series against the Flyers, the 2 teams traded wins back and forth, while the goaltenders Khabibulin and Kiprusoff did their best to outduel each other. Entering Game 6, the Lightning trailed 3-2 in the series. Tied at 2 late in the third period, Martin Jelena nearly put the Flames in the lead during a controversial play that could have ended the series in the Flames' favor. However, instead, the game went into 1 overtime and then a second before Martin St. Louis scored for Tampa to send the series to a Game 7. Both defenses were at their best for this final game, with Calgary only managing to put 17 shots on net and Tampa only 15. Though shots were scarce, the Lightning's Ruslan Fedotenko made his count, netting goals in the first and second periods to give Tampa a 2-0 lead. Though Calgary cut the lead down with a goal midway through the third, the Lightning held them to just that to win their club's first ever Stanley Cup, becoming the southernmost team to do so. Additionally, Martin St. Louis was awarded the Lester B. Pearson, Hart, and Art Ross trophies, while coach John Tortorella received the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year.
Unfortunately, Tampa had to wait an extra year before they could defend their new title, since the 2004-2005 season was completely lost due to a lockout. Plus, they would lose Stillman, Lukowich, and Hobby Bolin before play resumed. Despite having some regular season success after returning from the lockout, with 2 second-place divisional finishes and LeCavalier leading the league in goals in 2006-2007, the Lightning would be first-round playoff knockouts 2 years in a row before failing to even make the playoffs for 3 seasons after that.
During this time, the club would not only part ways with John Tortorella, Brad Richards, Dan Boyle, and Frederick Modine, but also Premier center Steve Stamkos, their first overall pick in 2008, and defenseman Victor Hedman, their second overall pick in 2009. Not long after the team was purchased by Bostonian investment banker Jeffrey Vinnick in 2010, former Red Wings Steve Yzerman was installed as the club's new GM prior to the 2010-2011 season. Since Yzerman took the helm, the Lightning have been as far as the third round of the playoffs in 3 of their playoff appearances, and even returned to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2015. Though they ultimately lost to Chicago that year, Tampa Bay has become a club that boasts enough talent to make them a potential threat each season.